Life growing up on a farm was difficult, and it was especially difficult for little Delores.
I think living on the farm, I did a lot of things like my mother would have to take me out in the field and put me in the wagon when she picked corn. And I always sat way in a corner far away so the corn didn't hit me. But that was some of the things I grew up with. I just had to go right on out in the field and with them when they done their work.
Unlike most little girls, Delores never played with dolls. Having just an older brother for her earliest years, she grew to be more of a tomboy. Her toys were her pets, and especially one which she loved most of all.
I had a pony, and that was my prized possession, that pony. And also we had a billy goat, and that billy goat would buck me off my kitty cart. I'd get on top of I'd go out to bring the cows in from the pasture, and I'd climb on top of one of them mild-mannered cows and ride them back to the barn. And I had pets. I had cats and things that were pets of mine. But other than that, living in the country, I don't remember a whole lot of it.
One of her early memories of living in Rock Grove included some difficult times. Once, when the family was in Freeport to get supplies, her father Emerson went to a tavern while her mother Hazel and the two children went shopping.
And so my mother wouldn't get in the car with him to ride home. So we walked the railroad track all the way home because she would not. So it was probably maybe 20 miles, I don't know, close to that, back to Rock Grove where they lived from Freeport. She didn't put put that on us children that they'd be in an accident or something. So that was the hard part with him. I mean, he also got picked up from leaving a tavern in Freeport and driving out on the highway and got picked up and his driver's license taken away from him. So then we had no way to get to town, and my brother, luckily, older brother, was luckily old enough to drive. Otherwise, we would have been stuck in the country with no way to get to town.
When she was 6, Delores' family moved 8 miles from Rock Grove to the neighboring town of Orangeville. Emerson was, like many farmers in his day, a share farmer. He would share half of the profits of his farming with the landlord of the farm. When he moved, it was to find better land or better farming conditions. In Orangeville, Delores started school. She attended the one-room Pleasant Hill School.
Well, that was different because sometimes there'd only be 2 or 3 children in one grade, and you'd be off on a corner, and the other ones were doing their schoolwork in another corner, and you had 1 through the 8th grade, 1st through 8th, all in one room.
It was while living in Orangeville that Elmer, Delores' older brother, became seriously ill.
He got very sick. He got pneumonia and he almost died. And I remember the doctors had never used penicillin before. And they said, well, my mother didn't want to take him to the hospital. And he was running this terrible high temperature, so they said, well, we'll try penicillin. That's a new drug. And if this reacts and it takes that temperature down, you don't have to take him to the hospital. Otherwise, we'll have to put him in the hospital. And penicillin took care of it. Through the night, he was okay then and snapped out of it. But that was one thing I remember as a young child, seeing him. Not knowing whether he's going to live or die. That was some of the hard times you go through.
When she was about 9, the family moved again. This time 6.5 miles south to Cedarville. There she continued school. She loved recess.
and I get in the swing, and I was swinging high, and the bell rang to go in, and I jumped out, and I had my skirt caught, and it ripped off of me, and there I was, stuck probably 3 miles from home, and nobody to get me. And so my cousin lived in Cedarville, and she took me to her house to get me a skirt so I could go back to school.
It was while she was in high school that she started to work at the Crum and Forster Insurance Company. She worked there in the evenings and weekends as a key punch operator.
I worked after school to begin with, and then Saturdays. And then after I graduated during the summer, I worked full-time. But I was a key punch operator, and you had to punch in on cards all the information on these insurance policies, the name of the insurance company and all the things that needed to be processed. And you'd punch it in on these cards, and they'd run them through a machine that would copy out all the information they needed. And it was fun. I had a good time there. The girls were all fun, and we just had a good time. But I was a stinker. We had a girl that was going with a minister, and she was a little older. She probably was in her 30s, but she acted a little different than us young kids did, and so she went to the restroom, and I went to the windowsill and got a snowball outside the window, and I put it on her chair, and when she came back in, she sat on it, and she got all wet. Then I was embarrassed. But we did little tricks, little tricks like that. But I did have fun. They didn't get nasty to you. We were just a bunch of young girls. We had fun.
After that, they started dating seriously. It soon became apparent that dating was interfering with Ron's work schedule.
She kept me on the go. She was working at Crum and Forster's, I believe, at the time, and boy, we had to be gone someplace, I think, almost every night.
I didn't want to sit at home, so he'd call up, and I'd say, well, aren't you coming over tonight? So then he'd come over, and then we'd go either out to the park or maybe, I don't remember, we took rides, and it was just something to do. We didn't really spend a lot of money, but the idea was going to get to see him.
During their courtship, Delores broke up with Ron.
But I did throw his ring back one time. I don't remember what brought it on. I do not remember that part, but I knew I did throw the ring back at him, and I was through. But then I felt bad, and I think he called me up the next night or something, and then we got back together again. But we did once break up.
As they both tell it, there was no real marriage proposal, only a realization that Ron needed sleep.
I was getting so wore out working and out at night. I would go to the men's room and at Fairbanks and get some sleep. I'm surprised I didn't get fired for snoring in the bathroom. I don't know, but anyway, that was the only way I could seem to kind of catch up on my sleep was in the bathroom.
So I guess he thought it was getting to be too much. So it was time we get married. So we decided that was it.
Yeah, it was getting pretty wore down. I figured maybe that was what better get married so I can get some sleep.